the teachings that I've been exposed to suggest that time is a function of my mind. Doesn't exist. You keep talking about the burden of creating a future, so my mind is jammed because the enlightenment conversation that you're having, I believe, is wanting to guide me to get out of the structures of my mind where time doesn't exist, and all there is now. So you say things that have me be confused about, are you talking about an authentic self that's really an ego that has spiritual values, because you're talking about an authentic self that makes judgments, you're not talking about an authentic self that's not attached. So I have a few other things that I'd love to engage you with, but
so is this some kind of Advaita path or some kind of Buddhist path you're talking about?
Well, having just spent 5 days with Adyashanti, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But I'm trying to. Yeah, thank you for that.
Right. No. Well. Okay. So yeah. No. That's good. So the point is.
Help me bring both together,
right.
If you could.
So the point is that, with all due respect to Eckhart Tolle and Adyashanti and a lot of other people, they're only basically pointing people towards this. So the ground of being, it's just this bottom half of the model. That's basically the solution. The solution to all your problems is awaken to the ground of all being, to the part of yourself. This is what I was speaking about earlier. It's the part of yourself that has never taken form, never taken birth. Realize the part of yourself that has never been born. It's the primordial, groundless ground and empty void out of which the whole creative process emerged. It's the same thing that Eckhart's talking about, the same thing. So basically he's saying it's basically in this model, so you're stuck in ego, it's the ego model, so you're a victim and you take everything personally and and you're lost in collective and personal ego, all these things. So what you do is you focus upon consciousness itself, the ground of being, and you go, relief. So when you go here, what they're saying is true. You say there's no time. In this dimension of your own self, there isn't any time. So they're telling you that here there's no time. Here there's no mind, there's no time, there's no thought, there's no past, there's no future, there's no problem, there's no worry. That's fine. So that's just one dimension. So you're going from here, -1, which would be a negative relationship to life, which is ego, right? You with me?
I'm with you.
You're with ego's a negative relationship to life. Ego generally is based upon the conclusion that something is wrong, right? The core of the ego structure of most individual, you can call it judgment if you want, but you can just say but more specifically it's based on something is wrong, right? So the ego in this model is based on the conviction that something is wrong. So when you experience consciousness before creation, you're going from -1 to 0. You're going back to before the beginning. You realize, wow, not only is nothing ever happened. That's the big joke. The Zen master laughs. Wake up! It never happened. It's all a big dream. Wake up, everybody! It's all a joke. That's basically it's a traditional pre-modern enlightenment, and that's basically it. Realize that consciousness is the only reality, and the whole world of time and becoming is an illusion. Okay? And it was my teacher, Punja was basically, that was his teaching also. Okay? So what you're going here is from -1, negative relationships like ego, to no relationship whatsoever. No relationship, you're free. No relationship is the position of this groundless ground from before anything happened. From here you have no relationship to anything that ever happened because you're going back to before the beginning. So before the beginning there was no relationship to anything, right? There was only that, I am that. Okay? And of course, there's no judgments because there's nothing exists yet. So there's no opinions or conclusions to draw about anything because nothing exists yet. Right? So and then it's cool because you see when you just say you're free from everything, you just shh. It's great. You see. So then the problem is, you're in your room, right? You're just meditating on consciousness. There's no world, nothing. So then you have to go, then this is what happens, you go like this. Now the point is, the ground of being, where this stuff, when it opens its mouth, the minute it opens its mouth, is responding to like 40,000 years of culture. and conditioning. Now what's going to happen? Because this is unconditioned. This is unconditioned. And you and I can only be completely unconditioned as long as we don't move and we have our mind completely free from the conceptual mind. We can be unconditioned. But the minute we respond to life in any way, there's hundreds of thousands, there's biological conditioning and 40,000 years of cultural conditioning and our own personal thing and all the rest of it. And otherwise we wouldn't even know how to respond. We wouldn't even know we wouldn't know how to respond. Someone says, coffee? How do I know what coffee is? Okay? Now, what happens here, so we go -1 to 0, right? Negative relationship to life to no relationship. So what Eckhart Tolle or Adyashanti or any of those guys, don't have the answer to the question is, they'll tell you how to get out of the problem. But when it gets to going from 0 back into the world, then it gets really confusing. This teaching I have is really the only, in terms of the Enlightenment teachings, is the only clear, unambiguous answer to the question. Because as I was saying before, God is being, and God is becoming. So when you open so the goal here now is when you open your mouth is to become God, is God in His or her, its manifest form. That's what the authentic self is. So that's what I'm saying, God is the creative impulse. That's the part of, that's the energy and intelligence that initiated the creative process. That's also this ground, you see. That's where it came, that's right here, that's where it came from. This comes from this. So God went from being, no relationship to anything, no judgment, only peace and no problem, to boom, the whole thing. And so the goal here is to become the authentic self. Now the authentic self, the reason why the authentic self is so important is because the authentic self, which is the creative impulse, the God impulse, has absolutely no ambivalence whatsoever about being here. Because the God impulse, which is the impulse to create the material universe, in other words, God doesn't have any doubt. Like because when she, or it made a decision to create the universe, that was it. We're off to the races and there's no looking back, because God doesn't look back. It's bam. He, she, or it's not going to stop until the whole material universe becomes conscious of itself. When the whole material universe becomes conscious, as Teilhard de Chardin said, that's the omega point. When all the matter in the universe becomes enlightened, all the matter in the universe becomes conscious, then the creative impulse or urge will be self-fulfilled. But of course, that is something that is literally impossible to imagine as happening any time in the conceivable future. So it's an infinite impulse towards consciousness. And remember, keep in mind that God as being and God as becoming are completely different or opposite manifestations of the same thing. When you discover the authentic self, then you can interpret the meaning and significance of enlightenment, which is consciousness beyond ego, in the most profound way in the whole context of manifestation, free from any contradiction whatsoever. And that's the extraordinary thing about it, because when I look at this thing, when I look at this, I say, what is this here? This thing here is designed for activity, physical activity, cognitive activity. We're designed for action. We're to participate and to engage with the process, not just to be free from it. So in all the pre-modern traditions, the main thing is to be free from the process. So it's all emphasizing transcendence. The main thing in the pre-modern traditions, and this is what Eckhart and company are still advocating, in spite of the fact that they use the word evolution. But if you listen to someone like Eckhart Tolle, and Adya probably the same way, even though I'm not as familiar with him, when they use the word evolution, what they actually mean is going back to zero. But if you think about it, it doesn't make sense, because going back to zero is not evolution. You're just going back to before the beginning. So you're experiencing the primordial state. But why this teaching, why this evolutionary enlightenment, it answers the teaching of being here. You see, because the whole point is to be here 200%. You see, that's the problem. Most of us are so we're alienated. We're cut off, we're confused, and the problem is, what we need to do is to find a way to be here absolutely, completely, 200%. I'm here all the way until the end. And you understand from a God-centric perspective, I mean, that's a hell of a thing that's being said there. That means that's like for your mortal self, for the ego, that's like the most terrifying thing, you know. Forever? I have to be here forever? But from God's perspective, from the perspective of the authentic self, you know, we're just getting warmed up. Because if you think if the impulse to create the universe was to create the material universe in his, her, or its own image, and the image of God is consciousness itself, you can see, as far as we know anyway, that's it's like literally, you could say the universe, material universe, is just beginning to awaken. It's like eyes are just beginning to flutter open, barely. So we can see that the creative process, in terms of the evolution of consciousness, or the emergence of consciousness in and through the creative process, has just begun. So the thing about Eckhart and Adia, you know, even they're for real. You know, their awakening is real. But with their teaching, they're teaching something that is outmoded. It's a pre-modern interpretation of enlightenment it'll help individuals to feel better. It'll help you to feel better. It'll help me to feel better. But I don't really think the point right now is me feeling better or you feeling better. The point now is me and you feeling absolutely implicated, right, for everything. Because that's it. That's what we all need. It's like the ultimate kick in the butt.
But I have heard what you said, but it sounds like you're taking a position.
Oh, of course I'm taking a position.
And with all due respect, that doesn't sound enlightened to me. And I want to let you know that I often take the same position you're taking, but it sounds like your God is a social activist. And I am a lot myself as an individual. But then it sounds like you're talking about a moral imperative.
I am. You're right. You're reading me right on. I mean, you're getting it totally completely.
Okay. So
you're totally complete. But look, the point is, the whole notion of not taking a position the thing is, the minute you open your, see, as long as you're lying down and you're not opening your mouth, or you're sitting in your meditation, even if you sit in a meditation posture, you're taking a position. I'm meditating. Okay? So it's impossible not to take the minute you open your mouth, the minute you say anything, you express any preference.
But as soon as you take a position, you're back in the dualistic mode. As soon as you take a position, then you are creating us and them. As soon as you do that, then you're outside offering the experience of unity.
No, but listen, you have to understand. The minute you come from, you're going from nothing to the many. Diversity, multiplicity. So you're going from nothing to multiplicity. Okay. Now, but if you listen to what I was saying before, that the authentic self that I was speaking about here is that one without a second, creative principle, okay? And so the idea here is, when we get to the egocentric, ethnocentric, world-centric, cosmocentric, is that the idea is that when the individual awakens to the authentic self, he or she realizes, I am that one without a second, okay? Now, I am that one without a second, and at the same time appearing as the many. But that one without a second recognizes the many as that one without a second. Okay, so this new possibility I'm speaking about is what your name is. Barry. So when Barry realizes that one without a second, that Barry is that one without a second, in this context of multiplicity and manyness, and Andrew realized that he is one without a second in this context of multiplicity and manyness, then man, Barry and Andrew can have the most extraordinary relationship because they both know who they are ultimately in a creative context, right? And what they also realize is the first God, or the first cause of the creative principle, can only create the universe through them. And the degree to which they are awake to their conscious is the degree to which that non-dual, singular one without a second is going to be able to create it through them and through the intersubjective context of their relationship.
I got every word of that. So why do you add the urgency?
Huh?
So I'm with you for everything
Okay.
you just said in the last minute.
Cool.
You're
I'll explain
recognizing
it.
me as
I'll
you,
explain
and
the
I'm
urgency.
recognizing you as me.
Yeah, I'll explain.
There's two of us. There's only one of us.
There's
Why
one
would
of us. No, there's one of us as two.
As two. I'm with you. So where's the urgency? There's no urgency.
No, but look. Remember what I was saying before. The nature of God is being, right? So being is what those other guys are teaching. Vibration. Just being. No urgency whatsoever. Everything is cool. There's no urgency. The SS is coming. It's not really. Global warming's happening. Okay. And I said, the interesting thing is, remember I was saying before that the nature of God is both. These are both opposites, and the opposites are the same. So here, in being, there is no urgency whatsoever because everything is already fulfilled. Everything is already complete, right? It's already accomplished. Okay, it's already accomplished, and that's the beauty of awakening to the ground of all being. Yeah, the unmanifest ground is already complete. So it's the ultimate relief from all my horrible past, all my judgments. Oh, it's driving me crazy. My husband, my wife, my children, my everybody, the whole thing. Here the self is already accomplished, already free from all that. Now, the urgency is the nature. It's not because I say so, but what the point is, it's the very nature of the impulse to create the universe. And so that's why. And so you will notice that if you. That's why I said so. The gross physical manifestation, the lowest manifestation of the creative impulse, like I was saying before, is a sexual impulse. So I just said stand back objectively and look at what it feels like. It's ecstatic, ecstasy, and urgency. That's what its nature is. And then when we realize this impulse towards consciousness, when you really get it, what is it? The impulse to evolve at level of consciousness. What are the experiences of ecstasy and urgency? And when the religious or spiritual impulse is felt, really deeply, there's an I must that's felt, not just, hey, that would be cool. I think I'll check that out if I have nothing better to do. It's kind of one feels, there's this deep welling up from within. I must. It almost feels, it's like I must do this. This is kind of what happened to me. This I must. Now, that's just simply the nature of it, and not because I say so. That's what the nature of it is. Now, if you think about it objectively, what becomes interesting, if you think about the whole notion of God creating the universe, that's what it would be like. Because from God's point of view, if the goal is to create a material universe in His or her own image, the sense of, and of course there would be a sense of urgency. Now, look, the thing about the urgency is, when you experience the urgency from the perspective of the authentic self, the ecstasy in the urgency, but they're both one thing, is self-liberating. In other words, it's right, but in the ecstasy, you, Barry, and Andrew are instantaneously liberated in awakening to the urgency. The degree to which I surrender to the urgency is the degree to which Andrew is saved and Barry is saved. But what happens then is Andrew becomes a vehicle for that ecstatic urgency, which is this God impulse or evolutionary impulse or creative impulse, the impulse to create the universe. And the thing about this is that urgency, from the perspective of becoming, not from being, okay, it's unending. So in other words, if what I was describing when I was speaking to this gentleman, to someone else, that this new potential in consciousness for individuals to meet in this intersubjective non-duality, when this creative context emerges, which is what my old work is all about. When the unmanifest potential of the next moment is fulfilled, the authentic self, there is no rest for it. There's no, hey, there's no time to take out champagne and say, we did it. Because what's going to happen then is the next higher unmanifest potential is going to need to emerge. And then after that, it's going to be the next one. And then it'll be the next one. And it's like this perennial, perpetual compulsion, ecstatic compulsion. But that's literally, you see, what the nature of the authentic self is. It's just like, as I was explaining before, the metaphor with the sexual impulse. So I was saying, as you know, it's never enough, right?
What I got is how you just compared.
I'm sorry. Yeah. No, but it's helpful.
When you put it in the domain of becoming,
yeah,
it clicked for me.
Good.
Because what I was doing was putting it in the domain of being.
Exactly.
And so in the domain of becoming.
Correct.
Then
No,
thank
because
you for staying with me.
No. The point is that in terms of becoming, what these other teachers, being, what these other teachers are saying is true. It's just that they always resolve everything back into being. And I'm saying, well, it's no longer, a relevant teaching, that made sense, 2,000 years ago. But the point is, like, the new thing right now is evolution. Evolution is the leading edge, and it's going to be. And the point is now what's important is this. This is what I said earlier. When I started teaching, I said this is what the new Enlightenment. And I said,
and I do a lot of reading in fields, and I'm
yes,
trying to listen to you from your eyes,
right?
Because fields don't have shoulds, and it sounds like you're speaking from shoulds. So, whether it's Rupert Sheldrake or Bruce Lipton or other, for me,
sure,
thinkers that push me beyond
sure,
what I can possibly grasp, don't have shoulds.
I mean, do you feel in life there's absolutely no obligation and no shoulds allowed in any way? I mean, does shoulds enter into it? In other words,
yeah,
you came in here today, you paid $40 whatever dollars. So if you came in here and I took off my clothes and laid down on the ground while you're all sitting for it, would that be just cool, or do I have an obligation?
I would think you'd just be demonstrating what you've said a couple of times by what you said. No, I'm teasing.
And you'd say, he should get up and deliver the goods because that's why he came here. And that's what that would, and you'd be expecting it. That would be an expectation, which you'd be putting pressure on me because, hey, God.
Don't just lie there. Do something.
Right. And I could get up and say, but Barry, that's just your ego. You're not supposed to have expectations or shoulds, and then, which is, and there are some teachers that teach this, but it doesn't work for real life. It actually is very unhelpful. And in terms of the shoulds, I think that what I feel is important is what we do want to create together is I think there was that the moral and ethical pointers, for how, because we do need ground rules. Human beings need ground rules. Okay. Now the ground rules that most of us have worked with come from pre-modern traditions. Thou shalt this and thou shalt not the other thing, and basically a lot of it makes sense. If it was 2,000, it was 4,000 years ago, or whatever it was, or 1,000 years ago. But the world's changed a lot, and it's changing real fast. Now, in terms of the postmodern culture that you and I are basically sharing, we can see that what the culture, what the culture is missing, and what is so necessary. I'm talking for people at the leading edge, for people that are really thinking independently, is a new moral and ethical basis for people to really meet in, is what actually needs to be. We need to actually create that together. It doesn't exist. I mean, look, talk about shoulds. I mean, if you look, even people can't, men and, first it was the family, and now it's the nuclear family, and now men and women can hardly, commitment doesn't mean anything anymore. People just, there's no sense of any obligation because everybody's out for themselves. So it's what's good for me. And that's where the culture is brought. I'm not blaming anybody, but I mean, that's just the fact. And I think that when we discover a new, higher context that's inherently meaningful, like the evolution of consciousness, for example, but it doesn't. But when we discover a new, higher context that's inherently meaningful because it is meaningful, that I recognize, it is inherently meaningful, sacred, and you recognize, Andrew and Barry both recognize together, we recognize that higher context, it's inherently meaningful, and we both recognize its inherent meaning, then that creates a kind of a context, an ethical context, in which you and I both realize, there's Andrew and Barry realize there's something higher and deeper and more profound and more meaningful than Andrew's personal needs and desires in every moment, and Barry's personal needs and desires in every moment, and then we meet in that, and we realize, this thing that we both realized is more important than both of us individually, and we freely choose, to honor that through honoring that we find a new way to relate to each other. Well, we do that through freely agreeing to do so, and then a new philosophical and ethical ground is laid for our relationship, which is based on higher meaning. And there's an obligation to it, and I choose that obligation and I accepted it, and you would choose that obligation, you accept it. And then then there's a context for our relationship that demands a lot from me, demands a lot from you, and then we meet in that, and then we're both pulled up as a result of it. And I'm all for that. We need that. That's called hierarchy. It's called it, but that's, and there were old hierarchies, there were dominator hierarchies, and all the rest of it that we've all outgrown because we're all too smart for that stuff, and appropriately so. But now we need to come up with new models. We need to create them together in ways that will compel the best out of me and compel the best out of you, and so we can both meet in that, and we're both pulled up as a result. We've spent the last 20, 30 years letting each other off the hook. I'm okay, you're okay. Getting over guilt and shame and this and that and the other thing. So now we've done it. Now we got to turn up the heat again, get things moving. Anyway, I hope that's clear. But the most important thing I'm teaching here has to do with this, what I'm calling this authentic self. That's enlightenment, evolution, the experience of consciousness beyond ego as the authentic self. That's where the action is. That's the most exciting thing. And that's when it really gives meaning for enlightenment now in this postmodern context. Otherwise enlightenment's only about transcendence. And I think what the world needs is now people who are 200% here, not just free from the world, but they know they have to create the world is where the liberation is found, is through the conscious creation of the future. That's the liberation is found there. Otherwise, I'm free because I'm free from the process. I'm beyond it. I'm free from it. I was never part of it. I'm free. I'm already free. Say, I know that, but I need you to be here with me. Now be here. Come, be here. I'm free from it. I've always been here. Where else could I be? No, I need you to be here with me. I'm always with you. See, now you see where I get in so much trouble. But just give me 10 years, man. People are going to get that. But this makes sense. When I'm teaching, makes sense. That's why I'm so excited about the teaching. Is it's so rational. It's a deeply rational teaching, so it makes sense.